You put the whoosy on the whatsy, attach the whatsy to the whoosy.
Hi, I'm Eric Valentine. Welcome back to Making Records. We're here at Studio Topanga Dice, and this week I wanted to touch on something that I stumbled onto maybe about a year ago. I'm always looking for new stuff to play with, new things to tinker with. And so in the computer, it's always fun finding new plugins. I stumbled across this rather unassuming little EQ plugin called CQ, made by Sound Toys. It's apparently an emulation of an old Siemens equalizer, the Siemens W295. I think that's the C part, S-I-E. And, you know, I stumbled onto it, I put on some sessions, and immediately was really taken by how well this plugin boosts mid-range, presence range, and the real high frequencies. That is a really difficult thing to get right in plugins. I've struggled with it for a long time. Most of the plugins that I've worked with, you know, they technically do what you ask them to do, but they don't have this this quality, this very seamless quality that I find, you know, with hardware. I've used a lot of hardware EQs over the years, Neves and Pultecs, and obviously the undertone stuff, and so there's a thing to it that's really wonderful. And this plugin was one of the first plugin EQs that was very satisfying to use in the computer, boosting mids, boosting high frequencies. So it inspired kind of an odd thing. This has never happened to me before because, as I mentioned, I've used a bunch of hardware EQs over the years, Neves, Helios, Pultecs, Quad 8s, Undertone, all this stuff. And at times I'd seek out the plug-in versions of the hardware equalizers that I've used just because of the familiarity there, and I'm always sort of curious, like, is this thing really going to sound the same as the hardware version? So I've purchased plugins that emulate the hardware. In this case, I was so taken with this plugin version of the Siemens equalizer, I decided to go and get the hardware version. It's never happened in that direction before. And so I've got 3 of them now. They're down in my rack here. And I've been using them, you know, for tracking and various things, and at a certain point along the way, I got very curious to see how close they really were, and so early on, after I got the hardware versions, I did some comparisons. I used some frequency spectrum graphing software to see how close they got the actual curves, and they're dead on, and so, you know, if you set the plug-in at +6 at 5.6K and you set the hardware at that same setting, the curves are really identical. They did a great job of matching that part of it. And so then, you know, the rest of it is really going to just be in the sort of color of the device, you know. The plug-in does have a drive setting on there where I believe they're emulating how the original hardware would drive if you start hitting it with a lot of level. So all of that should be in there. So I have a couple of things that I've recorded that required a lot of EQ. It's typically, you know, I'm boosting a lot of high-end or present stuff when I'm using ribbon mics. I have a RCA77 that I love. It's a beautiful sounding microphone, but it's definitely pretty dark. I have an example here where I used it to record, you know, a mono drum thing. So I actually ended up using 3 of these CQ plugins in series on this guy. So I've got, I'll try and get them all up. Let me see the madness here. Okay, so here's these guys, and then here's this guy. Yes, it starts with this one. +4 at 2.3K with 6 dB of 15K. then +2 of 1K, and then this last one, this is the big brightness boost here. So there's +4 of 5.6K and +15 of 15K. So this is what the drum mic sound like just right out of the preamp, no EQ. I love how punchy it is. You know, sounds like an old breakbeat kind of thing. Recording kind of thing. So that we'll start adding these EQs. So here's the +4 2.3K, +6 of 15K. It's a little brighter, a little more presence. Here's the 1K boost. Okay, and here's the big +15 of 15K and the +4 of 5.6K. That's all. That's the big brightness right there. So pretty cool, you know, the final thing. This is, you know, with the EQing on there, that's more what I'd expect, you know, drums to sound like, nice and present, and will set you up to be able to sort of place everything around it really well. So I've gone and set my 3 hardware versions of the Siemens W295, the same as the plugins. And so you can see down here, here's the first one, +4 of 2.3K, +6 of 15K. Here's +2 of 1K. Here's +4 of 5.6K, and the big +15 of 15K. So let's A/B these. So this channel here, this is the plug-in version. This channel has a hardware insert right there. You can see my W295 hardware insert. I patched them all in series in the patch bay with this one hardware insert. So we only have to do one digital conversion, and I get all 3 equalizers. So here is the plugins again. Plugins, hardware. So it's really, really close. I mean, there is a minute difference there. The EQ curves match up perfectly as far as I can tell. And the only difference that I hear is in the little sort of coloration of it, and it's the same thing that I mentioned before. There's something about the hardware version for me that sounds just a tiny bit closer up. It has a little bit of an immediacy to it. It sounds a little bit less transparent. The digital version sounds like there's just tiny little holes in it somehow. And it's just a more seamless, cohesive sound. Really, really small, and you know, not enough of a difference that would make it so I wouldn't use the plugins. I use them all over the place in mixes. I tend to use the plugin more when I'm mixing. I use the hardware more when I'm tracking the plugin. It just makes more sense while you're mixing because you can adjust them at any point through the process. You know, I'll use the hardware when I'm capturing things, when I'm very sure that, okay, this absolutely needs to happen to this sound while it's going into the computer. But man, incredibly close. They did an amazing job with this plugin. You know, these original Siemens EQs were very, very popular in this late 60s, early 70s. I think I'm getting that timeline right. And they're on all kinds of old, like, classic soul records, all kinds of amazing stuff. They're just beautiful sounding EQs, and the plugin does an amazing job of capturing it. So let's check out the other example. This was another thing. It's the same microphone. I love the 77, but it is just goddamn dark. So this is on a lead vocal, and so here I only needed one of the plugins in order to do what I needed to do. And so you can see it here. Here's the setting that we were using. So it's very similar, +4 of 5.6K, and then just +15 of 15K. Love this knob, man. You can just turn this thing all the way up, and it sounds great. So in this case, I ended up turning down the lows -15 dB. I don't remember exactly what the frequency selection is on this low shelf, but it's somewhere down around 50 hertz or something like that. So that's all the way down. I'm going to make that change on the hardware version. Boop, here we go. And then change the patching, so we'll get that guy going on the vocal now. So you can hear this vocal without the EQ first. So this is how it went in the computer. It's a RCA 77 going through an old Altec tube 1567 mic preamp in the computer. And then I have both of these bussed to a track here where there's a hardware insert that has an Unfairchild on it. The Undertone Unfairchild is on there. And then a little bit of this Soothe guy on there that I like to use, for the singer's voice. So here is the original thing.
Blindly digging for gold.
So it has that warm, smooth ribbon mic sound, but definitely very dark. Needs a lot of brightening. Enter the CQ. So here we go. Boom. Now +15 of 15K, +4 of 5.6K, taking out all the lows. Here it is with the EQ.
Blindly digging for gold. Blindly digging for gold.
It's cool, it brings out all the breathiness in the voice. Has the presence where it'll actually be able to really own its position in a mix, stand in front of a band. Okay, so here is now the hardware version. So this is W295 number 3 and my rack. I switched the patching. The setting is matched up. I turned the lows all the way down. Let's hear that one.
Blindly digging for gold. Blindly digging for gold. Blindly
Hardware.
digging for gold.
So there you go. Again, remarkably close. The only differences I hear are that same stuff, that sort of seamless quality, that everything just sounds more congealed. It sounds like a more sort of evenly connected sound. It's hard to describe some of this stuff. And the digital one feels like there's like little holes in it. There's a transparency to it. It's exceedingly minute, but I feel like I consistently hear that difference between the digital realm and the hardware realm. This particular EQ plugin I think is one of the best at mitigating that difference. That sort of transparency that I've had with digital stuff. So there you have it. Really, really incredible how well they did with emulating this thing. There is sort of like a silkiness to the hardware that I do like, and when it's convenient and makes sense to use the hardware, when I don't need to recall settings and do stuff like that, I'll grab for those. But I use the plugin all over the place in mixing. It's all over my sessions right now. I just love it. So good job, Sound Toys, on the little CQ. Little old CQ. Who knew it would be so wonderful? All right. I hope that was interesting or helpful or whatever. We'll see you next time making records. All right. Bye.
You put the Who's-It on the What's-It, attach the What's-It to the Who's-It, connect